Have you ever looked at a design and thought, wow, this is so 2015? Hi, my name is Maria Toka. I'm a freelance graphic designer, and in this video I decided to talk about outdated design trends, because usually I see people do videos about trends and they include everything in it. I made one as well, by the way, but they include so much stuff in it, and then next year they film another video about trends and another video, and it seems like everything is trending and they never talk about what is not trendy anymore, and it kind of feels confusing how to actually make sure that your design is looking fresh and modern. And there are definitely trends that are not that relevant anymore, and if you're still using them, people might think that it's a little dated and there might be something off. But again, this is only relevant if you care about trends at all and your design to look modern, fresh and trendiest, the coolest and stuff like that. If you don't, that's totally fine. Feel free to ignore this video. It doesn't mean anything. But I think it's really fascinating just to observe how the trends are changing, because it reflects how the world is changing. And when you analyze trends over a big period of time, like 10 years, you will see the bigger picture, like where this is all going. And that's why I think that's interesting. So today we're breaking down the trends that are way past their time. Another disclaimer, this is more like my observation, my opinion, rather than a scientifically or statistically proven fact. Okay, let's go on. And the first trend, an outdated trend, is thin fonts, especially sans serifs, especially all caps. We've seen quite a lot of it when minimalism was at its peak, and it was so cool and fresh to keep your design as simple as possible. Thin, elegant lines of your fonts were supposed to make it look very sleek and modern and trendy. I'm running out of adjectives. And it was like that, but as everything, it's changed, and nowadays it looks a bit outdated. Well, first of all, it's pretty hard to read, especially from afar. So it's not that practical. It may look elegant and classy, but not that practical. Also, all caps is harder to read in the first place compared to lowercase typography. And people have been overusing it, to be honest, over the past decade or so, because they've been using it not only for signage, but they've been using a lot of it on their websites for quite long paragraphs of text, which is so hard to read, to be fair. Well, now it just feels too simple. It doesn't have any personality in it. It's just very digital and practical, robotic, or practical in a sense. Feels like there's not enough of soul in it, let's just say. And overall, I've been noticing that, especially for headings, the titles, it's more trendy now to use rather thick fonts than thin. But if you still want to use thin fonts, I would recommend you looking into serifs. They still look very elegant, even more elegant than sans serifs. They will give you a little more classy look, slightly more feminine, it depends on the font, but it'll still look very delicate and minimalist in a way, and slightly more fresh than the sans serif thin fonts. The second trend is masking text and image together. What I mean is when people put the images inside of the text or one or two letters, and that was supposed to be something innovative. And why am I saying it was supposed to be? It was innovative, and it's a very and sort of a clever way to present your image, because it's not just in a boring rectangle frame, but it's in a shape of a letter or even the entire word, a phrase. So that way you're also communicating your message through the words, not only the image. It was a nice way of interaction between the image and the text. But again, it's been used quite a lot over the past decade, and oftentimes it wasn't used in a good way, especially when people used it for too long text, because it's harder to concentrate on the image then, or when the image is too bright and saturated and detailed, too busy, so it's not really noticeable in what letter it's put, so it makes it lose all the point here. Now it definitely feels outdated, also because people have been using the same thick sans serif fonts. So today I wouldn't recommend it. It's been overused and we need a break from it, definitely. If you want to use something with masking techniques, you can try make a part of the image going beyond this mask, popping out of it. That would make it look a little different and more interesting. Or if you really want to use this masking technique, just be careful. Don't use too busy image, too detailed, and try to use as bold fonts as possible. Maybe something playful, but not this standard sans serif font like Arial Black or Helvetica Black or whatever it's called, like the thickest version of it. Yeah, because it's been overused and too boring today. The third trend is curvy handwritten fonts. Not necessarily even the fonts, it can be actually handwritten. At some point in 2017, hand lettering has become huge. Everybody started writing their own text by hands, and it wasn't great because apparently it's not that easy, especially if you don't have any previous experience with lettering or calligraphy. Like if you don't know the right proportions, the right techniques to do it. It's not just simply writing text as if you were writing it at school in your notebook or something like that. Like not everybody can do it that easily and effortlessly. It usually requires some skill, and a lot of fonts were released which imitate this handwriting, and needless to say, a lot of them weren't great, to say the least. But at that point, because it was really trendy, no one seemed to notice it. Like every handwritten font already seemed like it's amazing, it's just so trendy, it's so cool now. A lot of small businesses, especially beauty industry businesses or any companies that are targeted to women, have been using that a lot, much more than any other businesses, because it's very feminine and cute. But a lot of these fonts feel kind of cheesy and cheap, because today we look at it more objectively. It's not that trendy anymore. It's not to say that handwritten typography is not on trend, that we only prefer digital fonts and stuff like that. No, but today I would say that I've seen a shift towards more like classic calligraphy style, when every letter has been proportionally measured and more carefully designed, rather than writing every letter in a very random and chaotic way. At least that's what I've been noticing. Let me know if you feel differently about it. The fourth trend is color channels effect. It's when you divide the image into layers and each of them represent the primary colors, which is blue, yellow and red. When you mix them all together, you get your original image. But when you shift some of the layers, you can see when they are not matching, and this creates this kind of glitch effect of a holograph, hallucination, a distorted reality. I can't say that this was the biggest trend, but it was definitely popular, but somehow it just faded away. Today people just rarely use it, and if they do, it really feels like 2017, 2018 maybe. I think the reason for that is because it's very digital, and we're trying to move away from everything to machinery and digital. So when it comes to futuristic trends or anything related to new technology, we already have a lot more modern versions of these kind of trends. And that's why this one is not relevant anymore, I guess. And the next trend is related to the previous one, which is holography textures, and they've been quite big. I remember that myself. I've been using this trend a lot. I've been creating texture packs and background packs with this texture, with iridescent and glitch type gradient. Now it's also falling behind because, again, other more modern and more fresh futuristic trends have replaced it. The gradients are still on trend, but not necessarily in this blue and greenish and purple-ish colors. Sometimes they fall into nostalgia category more, especially if you add grain to it. But even without the grain, they are a lot more diverse than this holography effect. So yeah, somehow we've just moved away from it. And the sixth trend is plastic textures. Oh, that one has been huge. Everyone at some point has started adding plastic texture on top of everything, as if it doesn't matter what your design looks like, as long as you add a plastic texture on top, it's just 100 times cooler than it was. That's how we've seen it. And a lot of people were selling plastic textures, myself included. I'm still doing it, but it's not that big anymore because it's been overused, especially on Instagram. Every designer put a plastic texture on top of their personal work, their posters or album art. But today it feels a little cheap or dated. Well, sometimes it's appropriate. It depends on the style of your design. Maybe if it's in this very scrapbooking and trashy kind of style, that can be relevant, but you shouldn't count on it as if it's going to improve your design massively. Probably not. It's just maybe worth adding just to spice up your design a little bit. But to be honest, what I've been noticing, obviously we want to add some materiality to our design. Maybe that's because people realize that plastic is not the best texture to admire. Like, it's not that beautiful as we thought it was. I don't know. I think today just different kind of textures on trend. At least paper texture, I feel like looks less cheap than plastic. Just like in real life, when you see a product in a plastic packaging and in a paper packaging, what would you choose? It's probably more appealing to the eye to see the paper material rather than plastic. There are also a lot of other materials that you can use on top, like fabric textures or the burnt edges of a paper that can look really cool, or like scratched paper, cardboard, or even a glass. That can be more interesting. But plastic, it's been overused. Just like in life, we have too many plastic things. That's what happens with design trends as well. And the next outdated trend is a little more specific. It's letters in flowers or any sort of foliage, maybe like tropical greenery, leaves, or something like that. It was especially popular for promoting summer parties in this style, and this creates this nice kind of three-dimensional effect that your letters are flat, but at the same time they exist in the space because behind them there is an entire bouquet of flowers which are blending into the letters in this really nice way. And sometimes it looked really cool, especially I like the example with leaves. But today, I guess it's been overused as well, but not that much. For these specific purposes, it's been overused. Today, I think it's much more trendy to make the letters themselves three-dimensional, because today it's a lot more accessible. We don't need to rely on the flowers behind to be 3D. And this specific composition has been used so many times, I guess because there were a lot of templates of this sort, free templates that everyone has been using. And when it's becoming available to masses of people, we started seeing a lot of bad examples, and that's how the trends stop being cool anymore. So today, if you'd like to create something like that, like a mix of a text and any kind of nature behind it, I would suggest you either make it like very realistic, the nature behind it, like photorealistic and very detailed. Also try to use maybe different types of fonts, not this standard sans serif font as everyone was using, always of a white color. Try to play around with it, maybe something a bit more playful, less strict. Or another way I see it is making it more like an illustration style. So, which is the opposite when you make it more flat, but you're imitating hand-drawn illustration. So it looks not digital, but this three-dimensional effect is still there. So that could look pretty cool. Yeah, but don't stick with something in between, like not photorealistic, but at the same time not illustration, like something half realistic, very digital. This is something we've been tired of. The ninth trend is polygons, or the polygon style geometric patterns. We've seen a lot of it in corporate flyers, brochures, presentations, and there have been a lot of templates of this style. And today, again, it looks too digital. Also, anything with sharp angles is not that trendy anymore. I think in general, we prefer more rounded shapes. When you want to use geometric shapes in your design, you would rather go for something a bit softer, a bit more organic and natural, because at the moment people are not really into this really strict and harsh geometric rectangular shapes, especially triangle shapes. That feels a bit too harsh and too sharp. And the last trend, outdated trend, that I'd like to mention is semi-transparency and double exposure. When you put one image on top of another and play with transparency so you can see both of them at the same time, or when you put a geometric shape on top of an image and make it semi-transparent, or you change the layer mode to overlay, multiply, or something like that. Today, I think that it feels a bit too digital and too clean. We don't see much of it in any modern trends. So if you really like to fresh up this style, I would recommend you imitating the analog effect, like risography effect, as if it's been printed in layers, one on top of another. That could work really nicely and it feels a lot more fresh. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, how to replace it if you want it to look a bit more modern. And yeah, those were my 10 anti-trends, and not anti-trends, I would say dated trends that we need to stop if we want to. If you don't want to, again, it's totally up to you. I'm pretty sure there are a lot more of them. Those are just something that's been on top of my head straight away when I was thinking about what are the trends that I still see, but somehow it gives me the look of 2015, 2017, and like how to identify that it's been dated. So yeah, that's something that came to my mind. Let me know if you have anything to add to this list. I'd be really curious what you've been noticing, that's something that's been overused by designers. So let me know if you agree or disagree with my list. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more. Follow me on Instagram and see you next time. Bye!